everyone. Welcome to Deliberately Intentional, the podcast that discusses all things intentional living and intentionality. Today, we have one of my favorite people in the studio, my husband, Mr. F.
Thank you for having me, darling.
Thank you for agreeing again.
It's always a pleasure being here, talking to you, and to see you do your thing. Super proud of you.
Thank you.
We are 22 years together.
22 years married,
Wow.
24 years
Wow.
together.
Looks
Are
like
we counting our break?
we're counting everything that's made us who we are, and I truly celebrate you, proud of you. Thank you for this journey. It's an honor.
Today's topic, and thank you as well. Let me rephrase that immediately after what you said. Thank you, love, for everything you said and for being on this journey with me. Today's topic is mending trauma and embracing love. Mending trauma, embracing love. We both have had a lot of trauma. How about we had the trauma and didn't even know we had it? I discussed trauma before, but this time around, we're actually talking about it in depth, what we went through, what we saw, how it affected us, how it impacted our relationship, and how we've set this course to not make the same mistakes, to break the generational patterns cycle that would, I'm sure, impacted our parents and were the reasons why they treated us or did the things they did, because obviously they did not know any better. I don't think that there's a single person out there that goes out of their way and says that, you know what, I want to do this to someone. I think that the people that are doing whatever it is that they're doing, because it's so many different types of trauma and how it plays out, but the people that are doing certain things is because it was done to them. And that's something that we sometimes don't think about. So, but we're going to get all into it. First question for my darling husband. What was your experience growing up in a broken home?
Thank you, darling. I like the segue of what you said, that things have happened to us and we're not aware of it.
Absolutely.
Growing up in a broken home, for me, my parents are always fighting a lot. They argue a lot as well. And all of this combined experience made me very helpless.
Made you feel helpless.
Made me feel helpless because I don't know what to do. So
you were caught in the middle.
I was. And as a result of not knowing what to do, made me very angry.
Of course.
Because these are two people that are truly
love,
adore.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the elements of how I grew up, and what these are the things that trigger my anger growing up. And how has it helped shape my understanding, or how do I deal with conflict? I don't know what to do when conflict arrives. I just literally would either be silent or just avoid it in totality.
Well, my experience was similar, but also kind of different. My trauma was also watching my parents fight, then watching my mom be unhappy. I looked up to my dad a lot when I was younger. It faded with time because of the things that he did and what I saw him doing to people. How he acted to people, how he treated people made me realize that he wasn't necessarily a good person. And when you have to look at your own parent that way, it changes you, because remember, this is supposed to be the man that you're supposed to look up to the most in the whole world, and this is the person you love the most. That's the first person you love. Your parents are the first set of people that you love 100% completely. So when things happen to them, and in my case, I was even part of what happened, because if you go back and you watch my episode of King Women, you'll understand. It's on YouTube. Google it, find it. King Women, Remy Fagmo. I think it's episode 10. But that tells you about the trauma that happened with my mother and the part I had to play in it. So I carried that trauma. I carried that guilt with me for many years. I felt that, and in the process of all of that, they got separated based on something I said. Then they separated. Then she died. Then I realized that the person I was even trying to do all of that for, that I thought it was my dad. I thought my dad was a good guy, and that my mom was a bad person. Because again, and my dad had a choice. He could have actually handled it better and like, you know what, that's not the way it is. You know, now that I'm older, I realize he had a choice. He had a choice in how he could have handled it. But what that has actually shown me is that this trauma, one, exists. My dad had his own trauma. There's a way that he deals with people that I didn't necessarily like. It was his opinion and that was it. He never I don't believe he allowed the women in his life to have a voice. Whatever they said, it didn't matter. It was his way, and that was the only way. Wow. And so for me, what that did was it made me feel that I always have to speak. You will hear me. You will hear what I have to say, because I felt like my mom died not having a voice.
A voice.
And so for me, I watched my mother deal with that, and I watched her die in that. And of course, so that I was carrying that. Yes, I knew I wanted love. Yes, I knew I deserved love. After I got rid of I dealt with the guilt of my mom. Fortunately, we got to speak before she died. So because we were able to speak before she died, it kind of helped me heal in that regard. It still hurt, but I was carrying that defense of her, and I carried that caused my anger. Our early days, I was one very spicy. Before you said one, I said 10.
I can see our similarities for sure.
Our similarities.
Indeed.
We had a lot of similarities. I was angry over what was going on with my mom. And I was also angry at my dad. I was angry at my mom for dying and all of that stuff, because I carried that for the longest. And then I was angry at my dad for being the cause of all of that. And then I took it with me. Yes, I was in love with you. Yes, I wanted to be in a relationship with you, but I still was not like, I'm not my mother.
It's funny you say that. I honestly did not know of all of these issues before I met you. I have no idea. And
you thought you were perfect.
Now I know I am imperfectly perfect, but then I thought I was.
I know. And it's kind of like, because even though our parents had their trauma and we didn't realize it, because remember, our parents are our entire world. So if anything happens with them, it impacts us. 100%. And a lot of the time as parents, and as people, we don't realize that the things that we do, it's not just about us.
Absolutely.
It has a lot to do with the other person as well.
Absolutely.
So we were both dealing with our trauma, which is the same thing for most people. Almost everybody has a bit of trauma. Sure. Then you take that with you, either your feelings of abandonment, your feelings of neglect, your feelings of, unsettledness, lack of peace, lack of
being accepted.
Not being accepted.
Yeah.
You carry all of that into your relationship because you haven't fully accepted yourself.
Or
healed. And so before you even get into the other person and whatever they're dealing with, whatever comes, even if that's not the intention, you end up taking it on, because it is also feeding into what you're. So whenever you would say something to me back in the day, I'd be like, come. Yeah. I'm not my mother. Yeah. You cannot talk to me like that. Not understanding that, well, he might
have to be a one-up.
It's not a one-up even. That it's not even a one-up. It's not a competition. And there is a fact that, Remy, he's not saying it the right way. Why not work with him? See where he's coming from. Grant said he didn't necessarily have the best approach either, because he was like, more like an F you, fuck you, you're not my mom type situation. But also, I didn't realize that how I was talking to him was also a trigger.
Yes.
And that was how things were for you. So we both brought baggage into our relationship,
I
and we
agree.
did not realize it.
I agree.
How did our shared experience of coming from broken homes affect our early years of marriage?
I think for me, it's again, just like you said, bringing in all of this past experience into into the relationship.
Well, I'll give you exact examples so that you'll remember.
Okay.
Whenever we would have we talked about this earlier, but whenever I would try to talk to him in any way, he's walking off.
Oh,
He was the king of walking off. The
I
king of walking off.
I'm glad you made that reference because this is part of the journey that you've helped me overcome. And that when someone is having a heated conversation with me, right?
Your defenses get up immediately.
Yes. And I don't even know that I'm doing that because until, you know,
Until we
until we
start.
started this process and you were helping me, showing me all of the things that, okay, do you realize that I was talking to you and you're walking away? Then I will pause and you would tell me how it made you feel and I start making corrections.
Would you agree that it takes time? It took time for you to see that what you were doing was what the impact of what you were doing, the impact it had on me. Would you
Baby,
say it took time?
absolutely, darling. It's a journey because
Absolutely.
you are trying to unravel an old
Years.
habit. And we were talking, we
More
met
like your foundation.
100%.
More like your foundation.
And there's still elements of it that's my default setting, but not so much
Absolutely.
as when we started this process.
Mhm.
I've got a lot better, but
have.
a lot of people don't even believe that they do it.
They
So
don't see
they
do
don't
it.
see it.
You know, because what people fail to understand is that you kind of can't see yourself.
Wow.
You can't see yourself.
I love how you phrased it.
But it's true.
You cannot.
You can't see yourself. Not everyone is self-aware. So if you're not self-aware, how am I going to, if I can't even see myself and see that what I'm doing is impacting someone else, how am I going to be able to see the impact it actually has on you
I know,
when I
right?
don't even, and then I can't
I
see
know.
myself?
I love it.
So he would say things to me like, okay, when you're not my mom, or when you're not this. But there's also another part that I didn't understand. One thing I would say was I didn't understand that how I was talking to you, the tone I was using to talk to you was a trigger because I did not understand his trauma. Remember, we've been together now 24 years. I would say that we got to year 11 before we understood ourselves fully. And not, so when people tell me that, but we've been together this long, he should know. How? 1 to 10, 1 to 11, I didn't even know I needed to work on anything. I thought I was good. And then, yeah, when we had the little things come up, I would deal with the issues that came up, but I never dug deeper. What's the underlying issue? Everybody has an underlying issue. You're either feeling abandoned, you're feeling unhappy, there's a long list. That's why you guys need to go get the book on trauma, which is dropping, and you'll get the notification soon, but likely next week. But the point is, that's why you have to know how to address and see these various traumas that we all have. It is so important. You'll be addressing the issue that comes up, but you don't address what's underlying. So the issue then comes up again. That's same thing for infidelity, same thing for anger, same thing for so many other different things. They're there. You deal with that one issue and think that, okay, we just got over that, we're good. But you kind of haven't dealt with what's actually underneath.
True.
So in our early days, I was his trigger, and I didn't even know it.
You did a good job.
I did.
But we all know better now.
We do.
Like you've always helped me understand that nobody, we don't do things intentionally to hurt ourselves, and there are
But yes,
good,
we sometimes hurt each other.
yeah, but people don't know, right? And how can you be better if you don't know,
Absolutely.
right? And this process is a journey. It takes people taking full accountability, which I have to do. And it took me, and thanks to you for being patient with me and just being understanding, letting me know that you were there for me. That meant a lot. I appreciate you greatly.
And I appreciate you too.
We wouldn't be where we are today if it's not you. I truly mean it.
Yeah. But I had to learn too. So here's another question for you. What were some of our pivotal moments or a pivotal moment that forced us to confront our trauma?
Pivotal moment was for me was our separation.
Okay.
That was huge because you hear this telling if the saying if it's not broken, don't fix it. Sometimes the way I learn is that I
It
need
has to break. It has to break. Let me
Right.
go break the old
you
teeth.
know, then I realized that
Oh, snap.
look at what I've lost.
Oh, shit.
I'm not gonna fix it, right? And whereas for you it's different. You don't let things break. But for me,
That's right,
I like breaking things and and I like mending it back. Not
I
maybe
wouldn't say that I did. And I wouldn't say, I think I will make one slight correction there. I didn't know we had an issue until, I didn't think we had deep issues until our separation. So I'm not going to make it sound like I didn't learn. I learned a lot during our separation. I used to think that we were fine. I used to say that. You'd be like, I'll be happy. And you used to say, like, what the heck is making you
Yeah.
happy?
assumption, right? That we would be happy. I
I
actually
did.
thought the same too.
No, you used to say what was making me happy.
Yeah, but if I'm taking it back to your question, so it
Pivotal
was
moments.
the pivotal moment. So when we got separated, I didn't, and I left
Mm-hmm.
until when I was alone, I realized that, oh snap, I did exactly
What my dad
what
did.
my dad did. And guess what? It's easy for me to be pointed that, oh, dad did this. I was blaming my father.
Yeah.
Then on to to put another layer on that, I add this. I before my dad passed away, we had a to add conversation where he was very vulnerable to me, and he talked to me about his mistakes, right? That the things he shouldn't have done with my mother. That was a 360 for me.
Yeah,
And
because your dad's exact words when you told me was my dad said, I should never have left your mom.
you're right.
And he also said to you,
I shouldn't leave my wife. That I should go back home and fix.
I think we were already back together at that point.
Yeah.
We were already together.
Yeah.
When your dad died, we were back together from our
Yes.
separation.
Yes.
It
we
was
were.
still,
But it
we were
was.
still figuring it
Yeah.
out.
But these are
But-
the layers that were pivotal to me that helped me overcome some of the challenges
But
that
what did you learn during that period?
that there isn't a perfect relationship.
Absolutely.
I learned that I have to walk with you, listen to your opinions, and understand how we could both come to the best decision for us. It's not about me forcing down my opinion on you,
Mm.
but it's about trying to see how we could cohesively make the best decision for us
Together.
together.
I think what
What?
I realized from what my lesson was from that pivotal moment for me was that even though I could be, and this is for you too, because you might not remember it, but I'm going to remind you, but that even though I could be with anyone, because we both were dating during our separation, but we realized that what we had was
Good.
different and it was good.
Good.
Yes, I could be with anyone, but I didn't want to be with anyone. I was there, and yeah, it was okay, but I didn't feel the same with anybody else that I
Fire.
felt. I didn't
Yeah.
feel the same fire. I didn't feel the same companionship. It wasn't the same intimacy. It wasn't, I didn't get to love those people. I was still just dating and trying it out. But between both of us, I always say this all the time that we both don't have problems dating. We don't.
True.
I know how to get out there and get what I want. He knows how to get out there and get what he wants. So when people say to me that, oh, you have choices, marriage is not by force, this is not by force. this is because we realized that what we had was worth fighting for.
True.
Super important.
True.
And he did not get onto the same page at the same time that I did.
Yeah.
I was able to deal with my trauma differently, faster, because I had people. You didn't. Not anybody that could talk to you in the way and the manner that you needed to. You didn't have the conversation with your dad until maybe a year after we had gone back after our separation.
True.
So I had my people talking to me while we were separated. And I was realizing, and I came to these realizations about myself, like, okay, Remy, you're not perfect. Granted, that's the problem. Oh, we all think we're perfect. And I realized I'm not perfect. I realized that I wasn't being a good wife. I thought I was. I think the day I realized that I wasn't being a good wife was when you told me you were depressed.
Yeah.
And you were, and I was like, where? In which house? When were you depressed?
And
I didn't even know.
And that's the first time ever that I think I've ever been vulnerable to anyone.
Yeah, but you told me that. That was 6 months after he had left me. And I burst into tears because the kind of friend that I champion myself to be, I'm the kind of person that I feel like, okay, if anything's going on, I'm the person you call. I've always wanted to be that. That was just something who I was. So to hear that somebody that, and I used to think that I was his best friend. So imagine your best friend now telling you that I was depressed. And I'm like, you were? When? And there were things that he told me at that point in time. And I'm like, and I now found, I'm like, wow. And I did not know it. Then it hit me. I cried a second cry. I was no longer angry at that point because I'm like, if you were that low and I didn't notice, what else didn't I notice? And that was a aha moment for me that, Remy, you think you know everything, but you actually don't. So what I learned from that was that, one, my anger was not helping anything. My pivotal moment was separation was one, then the infidelity was another. Because I'm pivotal when that infidelity happened, and we're going to talk about that in another episode. But the point that I'm going to take from that I just want to touch on real quick was that my malice keeping was what pushed you out. He was, remember his trigger, we talked about his trauma and what happened with him when he was growing up and the fact that his home was not peaceful. So the only thing he ever wanted was a peaceful home. Did he ever tell me that? No. But I had to end up learning that the hard way from that incident that happened. That was how I learned that, okay, I can't. That's when I stopped keeping malice. In my mind, that's my defense mechanism. I was dealing with it the way I knew how. You're not going to treat me that way. I'm not my mother. I had my trauma. He had his trauma. I was triggering his trauma. He was triggering my trauma.
Trauma over trauma. No.
How did we learn to communicate effectively and work through our triggers and our emotions in a healthy way?
For me, it's more of following your lead, to be honest, because there's some certain ways I react when things are not
going your way,
going my way. So you help me understand things like you give me the cues like, baby, I'm not fighting you. So that's a technique that she used, right? So the minute I hear the word baby, I basically lower my voice. So just all the things that way, if it's for you and you get very excited because I'm not listening,
my voice a lot.
I would use things like, baby, use your podcast voice.
That's the latest one he uses in the house now. Now he says, use your podcast voice. Or when I started the counseling,
baby,
he's like, use your therapy voice.
Use your counseling
Use
voice.
your counseling voice.
Right? Because she has different voice.
My intentional voice is what you call it.
A podcast voice.
The intentional
But it's
voice.
more of a body language, right? Because for you, you're an expert of that. She knows when I'm done or when I'm like about to like tune off from a conversation. She's like, okay, I think I've give him too much information, or like I've said too much, let me give him the mini version. Knowing that my attention span for like hours of conversation is very short.
Extremely.
So she tries to give me the bad side. It likes version. It likes key points. Just give him the key points and release him.
He treats our marriage sometimes like a project management course. Give me the bullet points. I'm like, dude, if I give you the bullet points, you're still gonna miss the context. And then I'll get him. I'm like, okay, here, one word. You got it? He'd be like, no. Then he still asked me to come back and say the same thing I was doing before anyway. But communication wise, I think that one of the things that I've learned to do, it's been me. It's been me because I say that it's whoever has the best knowledge on certain topics. And in marriage, what a lot of people tend not to understand is that your partner is not going to have the same skills as you.
True.
So in this case, when it comes to communication, I guess with me studying English and all, I had a better grasp at communicating, but I didn't know I needed to communicate different. So when I realized that some of the things and the way I said things to you triggered you, I start to learn how to shift and like, okay, his body language is a bit off. That means I've said something. So one of the things that I used to do back then, and I still do it today, is if I'm talking to him and he's not making eye contact, I stop talking. I just stop. And my reason for stopping is because when he's not there, that I'm not going to be able to sense whether what I'm saying is resonating or whether it's going in the right way or if he's even understanding me. So I try to bring him into the conversation. I'd be like, so what did I just say?
Or if he's ready to talk.
Or if he's ready to talk. By the way he answers, I know he's not ready to talk. Then I will wait. It'll be, babe, can we talk
At the right moment.
So most times if something happens, for example, I'm not picking that moment to talk to him, especially if it looks like he's irritated. I know his body language very well. If he's irritated, don't try and talk to him then. So I leave him alone. I temper my tone. I watch what I'm saying and I pick another moment.
I find a neutral ground sometimes. We always use that too.
Then we don't have it. If we can't control the conversation in the house, then we'll go out for Starbucks because I am not neither one of us is the kind of person that causes a scene in public. So we would specifically go out, specifically to have that conversation. Let's go and have coffee. His icebreaker, whenever we fight or if we're having an issue or something to talk about is like, can I take you for coffee? Because that's usually, or I'll take you for a sandwich, or we would just go out and have a bite to eat. That bite to eat is not because there's no food in the house. If we're in the house and nobody's there, yes, somebody's temper might get raised, but we put ourselves in these situations that will force us to still have the conversation, but in a healthier way.
Yeah.
And that's why some people need to go to therapy, but at least both of us were raised well enough to know that I am not going to have that. I'm not going to have a blowout in public. I would never do that.
No.
I would, and my reason for not wanting to do that either is I have a son. My son would be appalled. What kind of lesson am I leaving by teaching him if I were to do that?
Well said.
So that's one of the things that we've always done. We've watched each other. We've come to, and this is something you will learn over time. You're not going to know this immediately. There's no way. But with time, you're going to get to understand your spouse and you're going to get to be able to figure out like, okay, this is working, this is not working, these are my cues, this not, and usually take it from there.
I agree.
What strategies have been the most helpful for us in managing our tempers?
Strategies. I think for us, I think you just mentioned some of the things. Knowing,
for the dealing with the anger, for me for me dealing with my anger, I think it was until I got to the bottom of my anger that I learned that okay, my anger was where I learned where my anger was coming from, that it came from the dealings of what happened with my mom and my dad. Then I realized that there's no point in fighting you. No point. What is that? What do I gain?
There's no gain.
There's no gain. So there was never a reason why I needed to fight you. Even if we had a disagreement, it's not a fight. That is also one of the words that I use with him all the time. Babe, I'm not fighting you. That is one of my key things. After I said the babe one word and he's not answering, and if it looks like he's about to go off on something I said, I'm like, I'm not fighting you. And the minute I say that, it's like water. Coming as like, okay, she's not fighting me. She's just trying to tell me how she feels. So sometimes he'll use it back with me. I'm a little bit more even keeled. He has a lot more, and that's just because he used to have a lot more anger. Even the anger has gone now because you realize that what am I angry about?
For sure.
That's why I say sometimes with this trauma, you really have to address it. Don't avoid it. problem is most of us avoid our trauma because we don't even know we had it. And then it just stays there and it simmers
sure.
just for a little thing to touch up on it, and
you
it'll
blow
flare up again.
Yeah.
But I look at it, I say that nobody can annoy me. And I still say that to today. Till the day I die, nobody can annoy me, because before you're even doing it, I'm looking at you. If you're close to me, my first thought is, what is this person trying to do? What's going on with this person? It's not about me.
For sure.
It never is.
There has to be something they're going through.
Absolutely. There's something that person is going through, whether it's infidelity, whether it is feeling of low self-esteem, everything that you're complaining about, there's a reason why that person, there's a source to it. There's a reason why that person is like that. And so when you now realize that the partner, the person you claim to love, has an issue, how do you address it? Is that the moment that I need to now be angry as well too? So I'm usually the one, before we figured out his anger, you want to talk about who is the person who figured out their anger first?
Well, in this relationship,
Goes first. Yeah.
you, of course. But going back to your question, that one of the common strategies that works for me is, if my wife is trying to tell me something and I'm not ready to hear it, she just calls my son. Right?
That's in recent years.
Right? That's the middleman. Dad.
What are you doing?
Dad. And like, I don't know if you guys know how Charles gets my attention. It's one person that I don't want to do wrong. So the minute is like, Dad, go and speak to mommy. Go and apologize. It's like, did you do it? I'm like, oh God. I'm like, baby, can you tell him to get off my case? And it will stay on me until I make amendments. So, I mean, our strategy is just very simple: to open up.
But I also think that, coming back to the person that has made you do that, I believe that the reason why it is Charles is because that is the only person that you have loved that has pulled you to task. Your mom, may her soul rest in peace, did not do that. Your mom didn't always tell you when you were wrong. I remember going to meet his mom and complaining to her, thinking like she's got my back, and she said her son does not do any wrong.
But we also understand where they're coming from.
Listen to what I said.
No, you're right.
Listen to what I said. Yeah.
She would say that to you though, but she tells me a different thing.
She would.
Right? She's kind of like scold me on a lot of issues.
But did she hold you accountable?
But
did she hold you accountable?
Not most of the time. No.
And so because of that, whether you like it or not, that became your pattern.
It became a pattern, and I kind of like I grew up. I overlooked.
You overlook a lot of things.
There's a lot of I overgo. Mom said it. Like, mom wouldn't do anything, right? But I have to. You help me.
Yeah, but that's what brought about Charles.
Yes.
That's what brought about Charles, because you don't want to do any wrong by him. It's like, I love this dude so much. I want to be the person. And because I'd raised him to be this upright individual, he would have a way to tell his dad. And we're not talking about this negatively. He would literally say, Dad, seriously, I've taught him how to argue and how to reason, not raising his voice, not anything. And we know each other's flaws. So Charles would just say, Dad.
I never want to do him wrong, right? That's one of the reasons why I am who I am, because you and Charles uphold me accountable for the things that I've never been held accountable for, right? So I love what we have.
I love what we have too. I think that the main goal behind addressing the various levels of trauma and how it affects us is because we all have it.
Of course.
70% of people, I was reading something the other day, it wasn't 70%, 60% of the people running around the streets have trauma.
And they don't address it.
Most people don't think there's anything. Nobody thinks that. How many people are going to sit here and say, yeah, here's my problem? I can list my flaws. You are listing yours now, but for many years.
That's how you address things. You have to know what they are and start addressing it one by one.
Many people don't know to do that. Many people get into relationships and they think that, okay, it's all going to be fun and games. We got married, but did you address your trauma? Did you talk about it?
No.
And that has to be one of your dating questions. When we get into my book on intentional dating, we are going to talk about addressing these traumas. But right now, trauma is a big thing. We
is.
all have it in different ways. I'm sure all of my siblings are affected in different ways by our household.
Same
I'm
here
sure
too.
your siblings
Same
too
here too.
are impacted in different ways. I was bullied. You were
I
bullied.
bullied.
We were both bullied in different ways. I had sexual abuse. I didn't even talk about the sexual abuse. There's a whole bunch of sexual things that have happened that if we didn't address it, then we would have carried that with us. I know so many people that I'm talking to today that they were abused. It's affecting their current sex life because they didn't deal with the past sex life. That people are the victims of domestic violence. They saw physical violence. They saw so many different things, and they're thinking, okay, that's normal. So when their spouse beats them, they're like, well, it seems to be the norm. My mom went through it too.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Oh, and it's normal to argue. It's normal to have disagreements. But it's not normal to have full blown out shout fest. No, it's not normal. But like it or not, we default to it because we think, and that's what we've seen our parents go through. We think that it's normal, but it so completely is not.
True. Very true.
Bullying made you feel like
I have to defend myself,
always.
right? It's so for me it's, and I'm still getting better in that area through this process, but it's something that I have lived with for many years,
Unaddressed.
unaddressed. You know, growing up, I was bullied. You know, wait, I don't. This is a very sensitive subject for me, but yeah, bullied by people that I grew up with, which just pushed me into just
Always being on your guard.
always being on my guard and just looking out for myself
Only.
only.
Mm-hmm.
And people that don't know me would think that, oh, this guy has a nonchalant attitude. Okay,
That was your That was your
that was my defense
mechanism.
because I can only trust me. But all of that changed when we got together because I start seeing more than myself.
It took time.
Yeah, it's and then and loving someone else was something that, besides my parents loving me and their breakup, the impact it has on me, it took me time to love anyone else.
Believe it or not, I'm sure the people that felt like they were with you felt you loved them before me.
They felt something, but I don't know.
You did too. You must have felt something.
Sure.
Be nice.
No, I'm trying to find the right word for
the right word is that you felt something, because I dated, you dated, we dated people before we met each other. But I think our capacity to love
is based on what we have or know,
and based on what is also shown to us. So because I was different, if you remember, when I think of what you were, a nice person. You had nice parts.
No doubt.
But you were also an asshole.
True.
You were also an asshole. Yeah. I got to see the nice parts, and I was like, okay, when I'm thinking of all the things about this person, there were like 5, 6 things that I were like, out of 10, there were 6 things that I liked about him. 7. Then there was this, then the asshole thing would come out like every so often, and I'm like, huh? But for me, now revert that the other way. What you liked about me, which you said, or I'll let you say, was
you care for others more than you care for yourself. You always put other people first. I think that was very selfless.
You had never met anyone like that.
How could anyone be like this? I'm like, she's just unique.
But my trauma created that, though.
And that's what I'm attracted to. But my trauma, for me, was to only look out for yourself. Right.
But I didn't see selfishness when I first met you, though. It didn't show in how you took it. Your selfishness didn't come out in how we talked to each other. You were day 2 of meeting me, you went out with me and you were staying with me in a store while I was shopping, and you act like you worked there. So you were nice.
Based on the foundation of my relationship with my mother.
Exactly. So
Right.
you were
So
nice. That was all I
I will
saw.
respect you because she's at least gave me that understanding
Foundation.
foundation that I have to respect women and treat women like, don't do what your dad did. Always respect. And I had a great relationship with my mom. So when I met you, it was easy for me to kind of like just show you what I know.
But for a lot of people, I agree because we're going to touch on that because most people feel like this is a whole different topic, but I do want you to answer. Most people feel like if you have a good relationship with your mom, it'll be a problem with your wife. What do you think on that?
Oh, before Charles was born, what do I used to say? Charles is going to have that my son is going to have the same relationship that I had with my mom. I think it's a good thing for men that have a good relationship
With
with
their
their mom.
mothers.
All right. I think the same is going to, be passed on to their wives.
It will eventually, but also depends on the kind of mom that you have. If your mom did not necessarily embrace me like that.
That's a big factor of it. All right.
But your mom was not
Because
necessarily the
some
warmest person to me. She wasn't nice. She wasn't particularly nice to me.
you have, yes, she wasn't because of where she's coming
Oh,
from.
absolutely. I don't
Right?
blame her. I
No,
get
no,
it now.
I know. So she's only giving you
What
what she
she too
knows,
also got. She
right?
didn't get warmth from from
So,
your dad's side of the
and it's been
family.
passed on from
I know, but you're
gen
coming back to the same trauma.
one generation to another. So that's why we're trying to break the cycle.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about it because everyone talks about, oh, my mother-in-law is this, my mother-in-law is that. Have you bothered to find out your mother-in-law's story?
Hmm.
Do you know what your mother-in-law went through?
True.
Do you know her trauma? Anybody that's treating you a particular way,
There's a
there's a
story.
story.
There's a story behind it.
Anybody treating you a particular way, there's a story. They're kind. There's a reason why this person is kind. I always want to know why. I know why I'm this way. The reason why I'm this nurturing, I had no choice. I was a young mom. I had to become, I'm not a young mom. I didn't have a child, but I had to take care of my siblings from an early age. So I didn't really have a choice. I had to become a mother and I felt guilty as well. Remember, my mom was gone. I felt responsible for my mom going. So I'm taking this role regardless because I don't want my siblings to suffer. So that was where my caring came from. Mine came from my trauma. My mom also went through a whole lot of trauma herself too.
Hmm.
So it was my mom's trauma that made her the way she was. My trauma made me the way I was. Some parts of my trauma were good, meaning they
Same.
brought about, it made me a caring person.
True.
It made me a very nurturing person. So I've been doing it for so long, where other people have been mothering for maybe like 10 years. I've been mothering since I was like a teenager. At 50, I've been doing this for like 40, almost close to 40 years. Okay, 30 something years, not 40, because I wasn't doing it at the age of 10. But you know what I mean? Like, I've been doing it so long, I've got it down to a science. So that's just naturally something that I do. But for you, what you were looking for at that point in time is someone that was going to care for you, that was similar to your mom. Everybody's looking for somebody. If you had a great relationship with your mom or your dad, that's what you're going to look for. And the same thing applies. If you had an awful one and if nobody helped you process it, we human beings are different. So each of us is going to take something different from the same exact situation where I might, oh my God, say to go, I'm going to do the opposite. Some people are going to do exactly what they saw within their trauma.
Very true.
You did exactly what your dad did,
True.
but you didn't even realize you were doing it.
No.
You want to speak on that?
I mean,
What did your dad do when there were arguments?
my dad's not very
Confrontational.
confrontational. He doesn't like to voice or speak up about his own opinion.
You were like that too.
A and this person is a great. I mean, he has a, if out of relationship, if he's doing work, he speaks up, and I'm exactly like that. And the things we emulate off our parents, and
Without even knowing it.
we talked about when there's an heated conversation that he will leave. All of these patterns.
And so what did you do? You did the same thing too.
I did. It's exactly what I did. All of these patterns, and I'm smiling because I did not see myself, or neither do I know that I'm doing these things that I started this journey,
Intentional journey with me. Yeah.
intentional journey with you, and we were unraveling all of the various issues that has made me who I am today. And it's just people should seek help, you know, reach out and be vulnerable, reach out to you, because what you've done in my life and Charles' life is just
And the lives of many others too.
and many others. It's a living evidence that it's not as bad as we think in our head that these things cannot change. It can go away.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be a slave, to this issue. There's a way we can unleash them and become better. Don't be a prisoner to the things you've gone through.
Absolutely. There's a
So
way through
I'm great.
everything.
I'm honestly, people say, people always see me smile and say, oh, why is he always smiling? Right? This is the reason.
You're happy.
What I am happy because I walked away from this thing. There are people that I know that I love and still very close to me that still holding on to this. Like they haven't.
To their trauma?
And it breaks my heart.
To their trauma.
Because to their trauma. Because they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, well, you also have to understand that everyone's different. They may not want to talk about it, but also the approach has to be, you got to leave them alone, then you come back. Just like when talking to you, you're not easy to talk to.
I know. And in as much as I love them and I want to do something, because they don't want to talk about it, it breaks my heart. And I'm like,
but it's not about you.
I have to leave them alone.
You have to understand something. Trauma is something that everybody is dealing with in different ways. You've had me talking to you about so many different things. We talk a lot. We do a lot of talking. I don't know why we always still have things to talk about after being together almost 24 years, but we still do. But the point I'm bringing up with this talking is that you need to get out of your own head. You need to have people you talk to. You need to be certain that the people that you're talking to actually have the ability to help you. You can talk to certain people, but if they don't have the tools required to help you see who you are, see what you're doing that's wrong, then it would be detrimental. You have to be intentional about healing and recovering from your trauma. Because if you're not, it's just going to stay there. It's going to keep stewing. It doesn't go anywhere.
One day, it would just blow up.
Yes.
And that's.
What are common misconceptions about trauma and anger that you'd like to tell the audience?
Oh my God. I am just the way I am.
That's a common one. Yeah, people say that all the time. I can't change.
I'm just an angry person. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
You could change. I think those are the ones that resonate with me. Is there any other thing you want to?
No, for me, it's like, most people, their defense mechanism, he never loved me. She never loved me. I don't think that I'm worthy of love. That's what you're basically saying inside.
In your
head. When you are saying things like that, you don't realize that you're saying that you're not worthy of love. But remember, just like all the trees and all the things that are outside, that person chose you for a reason. There was love there. Why aren't we tracking what they do? Doesn't mean because they loved you that their other issues just disappear. I love you. I want to be with you, but I got trauma. You're saying, I love you, you should be with me, but I don't want to understand anything about your trauma.
You're right. There's also one that resonates. People believe this myth that they cannot get over trauma.
You can absolutely get over trauma. Absolutely.
It is something that's you could intentionally get over if you want to. You have to be
intentional.
Yes.
What advice will you give to others struggling with similar issues in their relationship?
Reach out to my wife.
No, outside of that.
Be willing to talk about it.
Be willing
Be
to talk about
willing
it.
to be vulnerable. Be willing to know that you could overcome this issue. Be willing to address this issue with someone and be willing to free yourself from it.
Okay. In conclusion, um, today's episode was all about trauma. We talked about how our experiences watching our parents' marriages fall apart, how for me, it gave me a view of I didn't think I'd ever want to get married. I didn't want to get married. Then I met him and I'm like, okay, if I'm going to marry anybody, I'm going to marry him. But I didn't have any hope thinking that in my wildest dreams, I didn't think I'd have what I have right now, that I would completely connect with somebody, that he would be my best friend. I can see myself dying with, and I don't get bored in his company, and our love is this, and we have now gone ahead to create a life and an atmosphere for our son whereby he doesn't have any trauma. I think that I exceeded my own
Expectation.
expectations or dreams. I didn't think it was possible. But why did I not think I was deserving of that? Because I had trauma and I didn't see it. So if you have trauma and you don't see it, I think what we see on social media, there are good parts to social media, but there's also a lot of bad. The good is that you can see that it is possible. Social media might be how you found me. If you have not followed me, then you probably should. You can find me, Remy Fagbone, and I on Instagram, deliberately intentional, all over the place. You can find me. Just Google it. You can find me any way you want if you really want to.
She's Googleable, as they say.
But the point I'm trying to make is that social media can have you see into a world. If you don't have it in your own social circle, you can see into the world and be like, okay, I can get this too. But please don't think that it doesn't require work. Everything you want in life, you can attain, but you have to work towards it. You have to deal with your trauma and get past that, then create the life you want. That was what we both had to do. We had to see our flaws and we had to address them, deal with them, heal from them, then set the level playing field to now say, okay, here's where we're going forward. We still have lapses. We are not perfect. He has moments that he lapses. I have moments that my voice gets raised. And then I check myself. We both check ourselves. And then we are also responsible. Part of the reason why we are better is because we're responsible for
each other.
the view. We're responsible for each other for sure. But we're also responsible for how our human being that we created from our love, how he sees the world. Parenting, we're going to get into when you get into the topic on intentional parenting on that book. But our trauma, I had to be very intentional about saying that I do not want my son to have the trauma, to even see the trauma that we went through and have that be his default. I did not want that for him. And that's why I say that intentionality has saved my life, has created the life I have now. And it's possible for you to use that same intentionality for you to create the life you want for yourself too. Don't let anybody tell you that it's impossible, because it is possible. Thank you to my amazing husband for humoring me, supporting me, loving me, being patient with me, and for being willing to come here and share, be vulnerable and share this part of yourself, talking about your trauma. I don't think a lot of people would never think that you were bullied, or that, just talking about this. I know you, and I know that under normal circumstances, you would not normally do that. And for that, I'm eternally grateful, because I know that there are a lot of men out there that would not open up to their wives. I know I've had more male clients come reaching out to me to help them with their issues because of the times that you've come on the show. Every time you come on, it's like I get another male client and it's like, yo, you know what? I think I actually do want to talk about certain things. And I have you to thank for that. I'm grateful. I love you dearly. Thank you for opening up. I appreciate you. I also appreciate you guys for riding with me and for being patient with me while we took our break. I took that break to reset a lot of things. We changed our setup, which I'm sure you find, you got to let me know whether you prefer this setup to the previous.
It's amazing, darling.
You
Love
prefer this one?
It's great.
Yeah, I was liking the table.
This is very comfortable.
It's comfortable?
It makes me feel,
Okay. Comfy.
I'm relaxed. So great idea. Love it.
But thank you guys for being patient. We're back to our weekly schedule. I promise I won't disappear again. Thank you guys for joining us again for another wonderful episode of Deliberately Intentional. We are not going anywhere. We're now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Catch us on Wednesdays on Spotify and Apple. Spotify and Apple. And then catch us at 6 p.m. on YouTube. Thank you guys.